Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. It is our weekly What's in the Stack a little bit later this week, but we wanted to go through our best new comics of the week. Although this week we're going to start with one that sadly does not fall into that. So we'll go through those and kind of discuss. As always, let us know what's in your stack. What are you guys enjoying? What are you reading? It's always great fun for us to see that. Um, I'm going to start sadly with maybe my all-time favorite comic book. He's not my favorite superhero, but my favorite comic book of all time has been Daredevil. It's the only character that I have read every single issue. At one point, I owned every single issue of Daredevil, but sadly, Daredevil 22, solid Anom on this. It's not. Look, I'm not ever probably going to drop Daredevil unless they just do something egregious, but this was a real low point that I can think of in the history of Daredevil. In that, um, in this book, they largely have had the last couple issues. Daredevil's been fighting this thing that is like a fungus plant kind of thing that's been taking over his body. It's been a very weird body horror kind of thing that just doesn't really fit with Matt Murdock.
He's
In
fighting
the
the fungus.
Thankfully, they concluded it in this issue. But the main issue with this is the villain they decided to make largely fits under, no, I don't like using the internet terms, the popular stuff, but largely fits under the term incel. So this, man child sexist kind of character. And look, clearly, I think a lot of internet talking points were hit by the writer in this. He clearly had something he wanted to say about things like that. Some will probably take it as comedic purposes. I think for me, the larger discussion on this, because I would say this was a very poor comic for one reason overall. That's the type of character, if you think that character's pathetic, and look, largely, I don't really like that kind of cultural stuff. That's not a villain worthy of Daredevil. And I think that's the big problem we're seeing is occasionally in comic books now, what they will want to do is they want to have a character be the villain of an arc that represents someone that they think is pathetic in real life. But what they're not understanding, at least in my opinion, Mike, and I'd be interested on your thoughts on this, it also is a poor reflection of the hero. When you have this man-child loser kind of character give Daredevil problems for three straight issues, it's like, no, man, this pathetic little man-child character that you clearly wanted to make fun of, Matt Murdock should have wiped the floor with this guy like 2 issues ago. And I think that's what we're losing a little bit of is the villain is so important to the hero because it's a reflection of what makes the hero great. And so sadly, what Daredevil 22 does is not only does this ridiculous character appear, it also unintentionally is a major hit on Matt Murdock, in my opinion. Mike, how do you feel about that whole thing as far as when they make a villain like that? Like, what do you think about that dynamic between a villain and a hero?
Superheroes do have their lesser villains, but they should always be challenging. And of course, the stellar villains are, even more challenging still and antithetical in every way to the hero, which makes the story interesting. When you have the reverse Flash, he's got all the powers of the Flash, but he's evil, and it just spices everything up. A Joker and Batman, it spices everything up. And then there are the lesser tiered heroes, but they should always be challenging. And, and there's usually a moral um, deficiency in the hero, something that's antithetical to the morals of the hero, which
Mm-hmm.
the story makes the story move along. When you have a villain that's not worthy of the hero, and it takes so long for him to bring him down, it does make you wonder, what's wrong with the hero,
Yep.
that you couldn't have just taken this villain out like you said, wipe the floor with him 2 issues ago. Let's be done with this. Let's get on to Kingpin or something else.
Well, the thing is, Daredevil, honestly, and this is where, comic books make me frustrated in that we've seen kind of the pathetic villain in Daredevil very famously in the character Turk. Turk is kind of that character. If you've watched the Daredevil TV series, Frank Miller, he's the little run of the mill gangster kind of guy that Daredevil knocks out. If you watch the TV show, he knocks him out like 6 times in a
Yeah.
season. The comics did the same thing. And you can use a character like that to kind of show how easy someone like Matt or Peter or Bruce or whoever it may be takes out a character like that. I think the issue is, again, it's one of these things where they're putting the cart before the horse. in terms of it seems like this never got past the planning stage of, hey, I want to make a statement on this type of person in my Daredevil comic book. You can do that, but you need to do it in a way that also fits with the fact that, hey, Matt Murdock would probably whoop this guy really. This is the guy who's taken out Bullseye in Kingpin and has survived all these different events for years. To throw this at Daredevil, it's a character unworthy of Daredevil as a hero to fight. And I think that's the issue we've seen is occasionally, regardless of your personal feelings about a certain person's attitude, political beliefs, whatever it may be, when the writer is making a statement that, hey, I believe this type of person is evil and kind of pathetic, you also have to make sure that, hey, this is a really poor reflection of the hero, too, right? If you go through something epic like Star Wars, if at the end of Star Wars, the throne room confrontation is not Luke versus the Emperor and Vader, but it's Luke versus two stormtroopers that he knocks out in 5 seconds, that demeans Luke Skywalker just as much as it demeans the villains. And I think that's what we're seeing somewhat with comic books now is they either with the villains do two weird things. They either make the villains so pathetic that you're like, why would the hero ever struggle with this guy? Or they try to make it where like the villain is doing awful things, but they're trying so hard to justify the villain that it's like that's a really weird thing to justify. And so I really hope Daredevil can get back on track. It's sad to see a book that normally has such impeccable writing and great skill on it. And I'll be honest, I was actually really excited about this run when it started. Chip Zdarsky, the prior run, kind of did the classic Daredevil handoff that most creatives have done the past couple decades, where it's sort of been like a tradition with Daredevil lately. When a writer finishes his run, he puts Daredevil in like a really difficult spot as like a challenge for the next writer to take
Right?
on. And I thought early on they did some interesting things. They made Matt a priest, a lot of things that kind of had been circling around Daredevil for a while. And now they've disregarded all that and sort of gotten into this. It's sad to see books like that. And I do hope creatives, the villain is as important as the hero, not in terms of empathizing with them or rooting for them, but they need to be worthy of the actual fight. And I
I
think
agree.
that's probably been something too that I think Superman has probably suffered of that more than anybody, in that like Superman needs great villains. I think more than Batman, you throw him into a fight. Look, he's Batman. He's a human being. Yeah, he's got all this tech, but anybody with powers, Batman's at a disadvantage. Superman has always kind of fallen into that too, where they don't create villains enough that are worthy of Superman. Normally, that's just a power deficiency. This was just really weird and really sad because I think in an effort to address kind of a societal thing that the writer clearly cared about. I don't know why you need to do that in the pages of Daredevil. He inadvertently took a shot at Matt Murdock too, and that like, why did it take him so long to deal with this guy? Just weird. I think, overall, I just hope they can get back to some stronger writing on Daredevil. But I've avoided talking about the book for 5 or 6 months that I haven't been enjoying it. I don't think it's been awful. This was the creative bedrock moment where I'm like, okay, yeah, man, let's pull out of this tailspin here.
Okay.
But would be interested to see what do you guys think below. We'll run through our stacks real quick. A couple quick thoughts on some books that came out this week. I thought a pretty strong week, and then Mike, I know you had a graphic novel that you wanted to talk about as well that DC
Yes.
picked up. So a couple things we'll cover. I think one of the best books this week. This is called Imperial. It's a crossover with Jonathan Hickman. I think the artist on this, and I lost his name for a second. Let me grab that. I'll put it here in a second. But largely, what this is Jonathan Hickman took a lot of broken characters in the Marvel universe, like Nova, Black Panther, the Guardians of the Galaxy. This prominently features the Hulk as well. And he kind of is reviving the cosmic area of Marvel. And so what's interesting is this is largely a murder case that takes place. Hulk's son had been running a planet. Hulk has a son named Scar, who's running a planet. He is murdered, and largely, and again, the artist is Ivan Cabello in this. But in the book, they're investigating this murder. You get all the corners of the galaxy involved with Peter Quill and Nova. And they involve Wakanda quite a bit, Black Panther. It really sets up a lot of dynamics. And this is interesting to me in that Hickman is so good at the setup piece of this. And so he's potentially set up an interesting Hulk series, an interesting Black Panther series, an interesting Guardians of the Galaxy series, an interesting Nova series, all in one issue. The only issue is this is a 4-issue miniseries, and then it seems like it's going to spill into some other series. The problem with it is Hickman typically doesn't handle all those. and they typically get handed to worse writers. And so, as excited as I am about this, I do hope Marvel actually puts some thought into this because there's a lot of potential. And I really loved seeing him revive the cosmic area of Marvel in a way that was good. My only complaint: Silver Surfer not involved at all, and that is because we are killing Silver Surfer in the comics to make sure we have synergy with the female Silver Surfer that they decided to put into the movie. So negative there. But overall, I thought that was really good. Would recommend if you guys want kind of an interesting book to pick up. I think that's really good. The most controversial comic book of the week. It's called The World to Come. This is a Marvel Knights book. It's Black Panther. Um, Christopher Priest and Joe Quesada on this. Christopher Priest, one of my all-time favorite writers. One of the only writers that I would say his name appearing on a book makes it an instant buy for me. And this is largely following his incredible Black Panther run that he did with Marvel Knights about 20 something years ago. The reason this is controversial, at the end, there is a fight between T'Challa and who is shown to be his son. His son defeats him, and they reveal that his son is a white guy who defeats him and takes over Wakanda. Collectively, a lot of people have been losing their mind about this with Black Panther being beaten and technically the king of Wakanda becoming a white guy at the end. We won't dive into it too much. What I will say is I hate when people overreact to things. And that one, let's be honest, this is going to be the villain of the series. So this is not going to be the long-term king of Wakanda or the new Black Panther. I think there's a lot of reactionary headlines for both. I do think if you actually read this, there's some interesting things that Priest does. He's a great writer. I would say give it some time, but I know there have been strong opinions flying like crazy, both in support weirdly of that happening and anger in that happening. I think give it time. Just really weird to see a comic book that
You
I
gotta you gotta trust in Christopher Priest. You know, he's
especially
gonna
because
he's
he
gonna
wrote
bring this
such a
story
great Black
around.
Panther series so long ago. And
Yeah.
so it's just it was one of those weird flashpoint things for comics that came up this week where you saw that happen and everybody's flying off the handle. And I just wait a little bit. I think this will come back. Now, again, if this ends with T'Challa being dead, and I'll have a different opinion on it. But
No,
I,
no,
I
no.
would trust Christopher Priest. I think it was a well written comic. It was engaging. I think, and if you need a great comic to read, go back and read his Marvel Knights Black Panther series. There's two omnibuses of it. They're fantastic. Some of the best comic reading you can do. But was interesting to see that kind of blow up in a negative way. Other books that came up this week: Absolute Superman. I believe this is number 8. Pretty good comic. I think they've actually gotten a decent handle on what they're doing with Superman. We see Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Superman all teaming up in this book. There's some interesting goings on. They've pitted Ra's al Ghul as the main villain for Superman so far in this, which is an interesting take. But again, what I will say is, I think the Absolute Universe, you have to, if the goal is we want this to be different and we want this to justify its own existence, I think it does that. The art's really strong in the book. Overall, I'm still in on that book. I think this was a good issue for that solidly. So I would recommend that to folks. Uh,
And it's the summer of
for
Superman.
Superman, yeah, you got that cool Flash
Yes.
kind of cover they did there as well.
Yeah.
No, they're doing a lot of good things with Superman, and I think Absolute Superman, you mix it with some of the other things that are going on. They seem to be putting some effort into it. Again, Absolute Superman is not my favorite book, but I do think overall it's pretty solid. Last couple I'll recommend here. Red Hulk number 5. This has continued to be just a really fun book. It's a largely, again, you have Red Hulk teamed up with Deathlock and Machine Man. It's a prison break book, basically the great escape out of Latveria, where Doctor Doom had them kidnapped. Fun book. We finally see Red Hulk break loose and kick butt at the end of the book. Really fun stuff. Again, if you just want mindless summer blockbuster kind of popcorn action in a comic book form, this is there for you. This reminds me a lot of kind of throwback comic books where you just read it. It was good fun. You enjoyed it. Really good stuff there. Last two I'll cover. Solomon Kane, number 3. Titan just continues to do so good with the world of Robert E. Howard. This book, I mean, this was a great page. This picture of this, even just an elephant showing up in the book, the amount of detail going into it. Patrick Zircher is both writing and drawing the book. Really great stuff. Sadly, there's only one more issue of this, but this is probably the most beautifully drawn book of the month. Titans just, man, they care so much about the world of Robert E. Howard. They're doing really, really well there. Last
Kudos
book
to
I'll
them.
mention. Ultimate Wolverine, number 6. We're about halfway through. This is a 12-issue mini. I think this continues to be a good book. Sadly, again, the same things condemning Marvel, though. I think this is the third artist, and this is just not even close in terms of the art style of what we saw before. It's not that the art is bad, but you had Alessandro Cappuccio who draws these very larger than life kind of figures, great use of shadow and stuff. This is just tonally so different in how it looks overall. And so, again, not a bad story, but I'm just so tired of Marvel doing this. Is a 12-issue series, and you can't even get halfway through it with the same creative team on it. It's just exhausting anymore. And that we would take a week or month long break to get the real artist on it. It's nothing against this new artist. It's just, man, you guys got to get some consistency. It just drives me crazy when you see them repeatedly doing that. So yeah, that's what I had in the stack this week. I had Amazing Spider-Man as well, but honestly, not really worth talking about much. It's so mediocre and ho hum. Not nothing real passionate about it otherwise. Mike, what did you have for this week?
Not much. I got the Flash. I got Vox Machina, and um, I picked this up for Jackson because he missed
Yep.
out when Deceased came out, and he read this in one sitting. He loved it. He was totally engrossed by it. This is really good. $10,
Hmm.
manga size format. You get a complete story. All the things we've been talking about, right?
No, they really seem to be doing really well with those sort of.
I
I don't know.
mean,
I think they call them collected editions or whatever it is that they call it. I don't know what the exact title they list it as,
they're
um,
called
but they've done a good job.
compact
Compact. Yep.
comics.
So they've put Watchmen out in that. They put Hush out in that. A $10 price range shaped like a manga thing. I think that's really smart for DC. It'd be interesting to see how are the sales doing. I do think they probably need to go through a few more classics and put them out there first. And that I know they put some runs that are a little confusing as far as some of the first 7 or 8 that they've done. But I'm really excited to see DC go to that format. I think that's really, really smart. And like you pointed out, Jackson probably hasn't read a DC book in a long time because he's a huge Spider-Man guy, and he read that what you told me in like a day or two.
In one sitting. When
Yeah.
we were hanging out at the comic shop for about 2 hours. He read the whole
Hmm.
thing. He couldn't
No,
put it down.
no, that's if they pick the right stories and put it in that format at that price point, that's a really, really smart idea for DC. Again, it would be interesting if they ever fully pivot to that, what that might be able to do for them, or if they released, the new books and that a little quicker in
I
terms of
think it's a
format.
glimpse of the future to come.
Could be interesting. Let us know what do you guys think down below about that sort of format as well. That is our what's in the stack for this week, folks. Let us know what you think down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. God bless you. We'll catch you in our
Thanks.
next video, folks.
Thanks, everybody.